Welcome to the RE Human Layer Security podcast, the show that flips the script on cybersecurity. I'm Tim Sadler, the CEO and co-founder of Tessian, and in each episode, I'll be interviewing IT and business leaders about why we need to protect people, not just machines and data, to stop breaches and empower businesses to achieve their missions. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the RE Human Layer Security podcast. This week, we're exploring how hackers hack humans following the amazing discussion we had with Jenny Radcliffe last week. For some time now, hacking humans has become the easiest way for hackers to break into organizations. Figures show that over 90% of breaches now start with a phishing attack, and social engineering attacks have evolved from spam to much more sophisticated scams. And during that same period, the number of adults on social media platforms like Facebook rose by 1,300%. Is this a coincidence? Well, Tessian wanted to explore this, and you can actually read our latest report, which is called How to Hack a Human, via the link in our episode show notes. We wanted to understand what people share online and how often they post to illustrate just how much information humans reveal every single day about themselves. And we found that, for example, 72% of people will share birthday celebrations and 93% will share job updates on these social media platforms. And whilst these posts seem harmless in isolation, when we spoke to 10 hackers, thanks to a partnership that we have with HackerOne, they revealed how easily cybercriminals can piece this information together to identify targets, select their target method of attack, and craft the perfect scam. And one of those hackers we interviewed in the report was Craig Hayes, a self-confessed security architect by day, bug bounty hunter by night. Craig is an expert on phishing, psychology, and persuasion, and regularly blogs on these topics. I'm really excited to speak with him today. Craig, it is great to have you on the show.
Thank you very much for having me on.
First off, it'd be great if you could give us an overview of what you do in your work as an ethical hacker.
Yeah, so by day, I'm a cybersecurity architect. It's my job to understand how cyber criminals work, how they attack organizations of all sizes, and then by understanding how they operate, come up with technical controls, processes, or anything we can do to counteract what they're trying to do. That means I've got to have quite a deep understanding of how they operate, and they're constantly evolving their attacks all the time. So for me, it's a case of staying up to date with the latest community threat reports or actual breaches that have happened. How did they get in? What did they do? What was the method of getting in? And how can we stop them from affecting the organizations that I work with? So that's what I do by day. By night, I do the opposite of that, where I actually go on the offensive and try and target companies that I don't work with and who've approved for people to try and hack them through companies like HackerOne and try and find vulnerabilities within their software or just the general internet that's out there. What can I find online that would allow me to compromise that company? And by doing that, I get to practice what I'm trying to defend against as well. So it's quite a nice balance. It's playing one hat during the day and a different hat at nighttime. It's quite fun sometimes as well.
And it was great to have you involved in this recent research that we put out on how to hack a human and hear from people like you just how this kind of information can be used in malicious campaigns. Can you give us kind of an overview of that? You know, why is the information that we post online now such a potential threat for organizations and their security?
For me and for attackers, anything that lets me work out how a person thinks and the context within which they operate, anything I can find out about that will help me attack someone. And it's not just about the stuff they post online, it's the times of day they post, it's everything about the way they are, this technology they're using, the people they're communicating with. Everything they do gives me some context as to how they work and how they think. And if I can get into that position where I understand what they do and what is normal for them and their peers, I can inject myself in that situation and take advantage of that by either pretending to be them, pretending to be somebody they know, or somebody they potentially would talk to. And people are very trusting by nature. It's very easy to get fooled and to do something they didn't expect. I get stuff all the time that at first glance looks really legitimate and you think this is real, but it's only when you stop for a second and think, hang on a minute, why would I be getting this? This isn't quite right. Something feels off, but I can't say what it is. And then you dig a bit deeper and it's actually, it's a complete scam. I know a lot of people have been hit by recent SMS-based attacks where the mobile provider, they know what network you're on by the phone number you have. They know you're with EE or whatever you've got. They will send you a text saying, I'm from EE, your bill's outstanding, please go to this link to log in and pay your bill. But you know you're with EE, you're expecting a message like that from them. So when that text comes through, oh yeah, EE sent me yet another text. You click the link, you go through, you follow step by step. all of a sudden you've given all your stuff away and they're now taking money from your bank. And it's so easy to do. From a technology side, hacking technology is really difficult. You've got to spend a lot of time researching into how it works, how it was put together. But if you can target a person, I mean, people are so much similar. Everyone thinks in similar sort of ways.
And I think in the research that we did, we found that 50% of people did not have their Facebook or Instagram accounts set to private. From a hacker's point of view, how much of an advantage is that?
It certainly makes it faster. It doesn't really slow you down very much. It's something that I've played with in the past. So people lock their accounts down. It makes it difficult to see what they've got on their profile. But if your friends haven't locked theirs down, I can go to your friend's profile, see what they're doing. If they've tagged you in stuff, there's a good chance it's going to appear on their timelines. Something I can do is take it a step further. If I've got a fake account, I can just add you. If you're a guy, I can be a hot girl. If you're a girl, I can be a hot guy. I can be someone in a peer group. I can be anyone I want to be with a fake personality online. Add you. As soon as you hit yes, I've got visibility of everything you've posted online. Some people are quite wary of adding strangers, but you can also counteract that by adding that peer group. If you can insert yourself into their peer group by adding all their friends who might not be as switched on as they are, you've got seven friends in common. Oh, okay, I must know them from somewhere. Accept. And even if you don't do that, you can add the peer group, change your name, change your display picture to one person they actually know, one of their friends, and then add them again as if it's the real friend that's got all these friends in common who they just, or maybe they've lost access to their account, they've created a new one, which people do all the time. You can just take someone else's identity quite easily and then add them, and all of a sudden they trust you, they recognize who you are. Oh yeah, I'm friends with Craig, I'll add him on. And then you've got access to all their data again. And as soon as they do that, you can scrape their entire profile, take everything they've got. They might go, oh, this person's not who I thought it was, delete straight away. But if your scripts run in the background, see, oh yeah, they've accepted the friend request, grab everything as fast as you can. Damage is done, then they can delete you, but you've already got what you came for. So I guess it slows you down a little bit, but it doesn't really stop you.
I was like, I'm thinking here, this is terrifying. You've spoken about this a little bit when you were explaining how, you can find out the mobile phone carrier and you can therefore build that kind of point of validation or establish that trust through a phishing email or an SMS. What are some of the other things that you'd be looking for?
So the first one, to try and attack someone without even communicating with them. If I can get enough information about you and your personal life, I can try and reset your passwords for accounts. So we've all seen them. You create an account and something asks you for a bunch of security questions. One there's maiden name, you've got your date of birth, name your first pet, name your street, first car, favorite football team, all those sort of questions. All the stuff you put on Facebook. So if I can get any of that, there's probably enough in there to piece together all the answers to your password reset questions. Because the companies are trying to find a way to verify who you are without your password. All they can do is rely on what they think is secret information. In the past, it was secret, but now not so much anymore. Yeah, you might have locked your profile down, but there's enough stuff out there from your friends posting stuff or tagging you in things, or just by adding your account and finally finding a way in to get that information, reset the account from there. Now, companies are getting switched on to that, and they will email you saying, your password's being changed, was this you? If not, click this button to go in and undo that. We'll recover your account for you. So that's not always very effective. So the next step after that is where companies do have that in place, is to try and social engineer people into doing what you want, either giving you the password without it being changed, which won't trigger the email which says your password's being changed. So if you can get someone to just give you the password straight away, that's it. No, if they don't even know they've given you the password, they'll never know that you've had access to their account unless you go digging for it and find it in some sort of log somewhere. But again, the countermeasure for that is multi-factor authentication, which works a lot of the time. It stops the attacks with a time delay. If I send you a phishing email and I'm not around to watch you submit your password there and then, that goes off and it's sent to me. I've got a log of that. I've got a record of what your password was. But I can't then go away and use that after the fact if you've got multi-factor authentication turned on. But if I'm sitting there in real time and my phishing site has a communication back to the real site I'm expecting you to log into. So say you're logging into Google, I pretend to be Google, password fields comes up, you type in your password, my server with the phishing site on goes away to Google, tries the password, comes back and says, yeah, that's right. Here's a request for an MFA token. Can you give me the 6-digit code or whatever it's looking for? I can present that back to you and say, all right, please, can you give me the 6-digit code from your phone? We've just sent you a text message. And the experience looks the same as you're expecting it to be. And I've got a real-time, because that real-time communication is going on, it just works and it gives me a one-time login to that site. I can't use it ever again, but there's enough there to give me a token I can use for a period of time until it expires to then do what I want to within your account. And that might be emailing people, might be granting access to other tokens for different systems. It might be linking to stuff that I already have control over. Once I've got that initial foot in the door, there's a lot I can do in a short space of time without you knowing about it. And because the experience looked real to you, it mimicked the exact way you're expecting to log on. When all that goes through, I can say, oops, sorry, there was a problem. Send you back to the real Google. You log in as before, not knowing anything different's happened. You're completely unaware. I've just getting access to your account.
We hear more and more about this concept of account takeover being the gateway into the organization. And it also can be, you can do a lot of damage, not only to the organization where you're taking over the user's account, but if you take over a user account, you can then use that account to then break into other people in the supply chain of that, that organization has a relationship as well. So there's the internal ATO and the external ATO. You're mentioning here about multi-factor authentication. Seems that this is kind of basic hygiene for most companies now. But at the same time, 85% of people in our report admitted to reusing passwords for their accounts, which seems pretty astonishing. Do you think people are aware of just, why that is not a good idea?
I think so, but I don't think they pay too much attention. It's not that they don't care, it's not the priority to have a different password on every site. If you think about the number of sites that people log into, there's a point where you get completely fatigued and you can't create any more passwords that you can remember. Now, people have created password managers as a solution for that, but they're not very widespread in use. So people tend to vary between the same either password, the exact same password, or types of password along the same theme, or they'll reuse them. All right, for everything I log into for social media, I will use this password. For everything for email, I'll use that. For my banks, I'll use this one instead. And they have a group of passwords they rotate between. When it comes time to change them, they just change the number at the end. So what I found from looking at passwords, you've mentioned that they use the same passwords all over the place. When a website gets breached, those dumps tend to become public quite quickly. And anyone can download them. I downloaded one recently. It was 40 billion password combinations in there or something, and you can just search it. It's huge. You can search through it and you can find everyone's. I found my own in there. I found my friends. I found people I work with. I found companies that I'm associated with. And thankfully, they've all been changed because of password rotation policies, but they're in there. It doesn't give me the current password, but it tells me how they think about passwords. So if it's the name of their kids and a pet name and then a number, if I can find out the names of their kids from Facebook or the name of their dog from Instagram or whatever it is, I can rotate through numbers 1 to 12 or as many numbers as I want, try to guess those passwords because I'm starting to get an understanding of how they think when they create passwords. And the idea of a password is something secret to you that only you would know. But if I know how you think when you're creating them, I can start to piece together, I can reverse engineer your thought process on how you create a password. So if it's something to do with your family, your friends, your pets, your favorite football team, all that is in that. All it takes is one password that I found that you have used before. Because that tells me when you thought about doing this, this is what you thought. So you've picked out the name of your kids and the date of birth or my wedding anniversary, whatever it is. So if I can find that, I know that's how you think about passwords. I'm going to create a password word list. I'm just going to try all of these different combinations. And one of them might get me in. It might not work on one site, but when I try them all on a different site, they might get me in there. Because you're using common themes of passwords and you're rotating numbers or symbols or whatever it is, as you go from password to password, I can hopefully gain access to there. Now, what completely throws me off when it's a totally random set of numbers that have been created by a password manager, I've got no chance. But if it's something where there's a common pattern, I can try and guess what that would be.
As you say, it's not easy to keep track of all the passwords, but at the same time, even generating a strong password, if you don't have a password manager or you don't have access to that, isn't easy. And I'm going to go to something now just way more simple than all of this, which is another stat from our report that we worked on with you. 93% of people update their job status on social media. We all use LinkedIn. I mean, why can't we update our job status? What's the problem with that?
See, I've got no problem with that because that information can be found in other ways. Now, a lot of people say you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be advertising your current job title, where you work, and the fact that you have just changed jobs. But I can find that out quite easy in other ways. I mean, one of the things I talked about during the presentation of the day, I just started emailing people and people email me information back, whether it's your email signatures, your job title, your phone number. I've never spoken to you before. I can send an email to any account in the world. If somebody replies with whatever information they have on that by default from the signature, that comes to me. If it doesn't tell me what I need, if I email someone suspecting they're head of finance and they're not, the email I can send just says, I can see you've paid a bill you shouldn't have. You've paid us too much money. I'm trying to speak to your head of accounts payable. Can you please put me in touch with the right person? And that person will, oh yeah, you're going to give us some money back. Brilliant. The person you need to speak to is this person here, and they will put me in their direction. It's very easy to find that information in other ways. So that's put on LinkedIn. I've no problem with that at all because it's so easy to get in other ways. We've got no problem with creating CVs and uploading them to random job sites all over the place. I mean, think about the number of sites I've uploaded CVs to over the years, especially in my early career, trying to find those first few jobs. And that's out there. People have that. Those CVs get sent to any company who's trying to hire someone who does what you do. I can create a company, start paying a bill to a recruitment firm, and just get CVs sent to me for any roles that I want to pretend and hire. So it's really easy to get that as well. Not only can I do that, I could also try and negotiate with you to take on a role at my fake company and offer you something, bring you in for an interview, ask you questions. There's so much I can do out there to get that. I mean, money's not an object for cyber criminals. They will pay for stuff if they have to pay for it, if it helps them get to where they want to be. So not changing your job title on LinkedIn, I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. It's easier ways to do it than that.
There is a challenge around this, though, isn't there? Because one of the reasons why something as seemingly innocent as putting your job title or changing your job title is that it sends out clues that you might be a new joiner at an organization.
It is.
And new joiners are
fresh meat.
Well, they're more vulnerable than people who've worked in the company and know the processes for 15 years, right? Yeah. Why is it kind of, music to an ethical hacker's ears to hear that somebody's just taken on a new position in an organization?
I think that depends on the company that someone's going to. If they've got a very robust training program in place, they'll spend the first 2-3 weeks going through, this is the company, this is the structure, these are the processes you must follow in your role. And if they're doing that, that's really good. That's giving everyone the information they need. And at that point there, if you've had that 3-week boot camp of all the stuff that you should be doing, the right behaviors, the policy documents you need to follow, the process documents you need to follow, if you've got all that, you're probably more hardened than anybody else in the company who's been there for 15 years. Because after you've been there for a few years, you start to forget things, you do things by habit, you become a little bit lazy, it's business as usual for you then. Maybe you aren't quite following processes the way you're supposed to. You've got a vague idea what they're supposed to look like, but you're a little bit looser on them. Whereas if you've just started and you've had the right training, you'll know exactly what you're supposed to do. You'll know who to go to if you're not quite sure what you should be doing in a situation. So that's if you're in a good company. If you're in a company who doesn't do that, you could set up for the first day. It's like, right, here's your phone, here's your desk, here's your laptop, off you go. You don't know what's going on. That's when you are vulnerable to being attacked by someone who sees you've just moved. Especially if you're going to a role with the authority to do things, whether to make payments or set up accounts for people or change access. I mean, first line on a help desk, if you can see someone's taking first line on a help desk, they're a great target to go for. You can ask them for help. You could even ring up the help desk and name them specifically. I've been dealing with this person. Can you put them through to me, please? Yeah, I'll bring a ticket up for you. Oh, no, I can't find that. Oh, we'll just raise a new one. My name's so-and-so. And off you go. You've already started the conversation. You know they're new. They've got no context. They don't know who you are. If you're pretending to be the CEO, they don't know you're not. They don't recognize the guy's voice or the lady's voice. They don't know what's going on, and they haven't had that robust training for a few weeks to tell them how things should work and what to expect and where to go when things just don't feel right. So yeah, it can be fresh meat, or it can be the hardest people to go against, depending on how robust the company is with the training program.
I'm going to continue this thread of things that many people will probably think are completely innocent and fine, but again, can be used to give insight into organizations. Out of office messages. So again, it's another stat. 93% of respondents to one of our surveys said that when they go on vacation, they put an out of office message on. I mean, I do this. What's the problem with it?
It's a tough one, that one, because they're very useful. Because when you're not around and something that comes up as urgent, and the person who would normally come to you doesn't get a reply for 2 weeks, that process might fall apart. They might not know what to do. You might be their only contact within the company. If you're an account manager and you disappear and you haven't told them, I'm going away for 2 weeks, they try and get in touch with you, that your phone doesn't get answered, they can't email you and get a reply. They've then got to start frantically chasing around within your company to try and find somebody else. So the out of office is great. It tells them where to go, when you'll be back, the next point of call. It keeps your customers informed. So that's business as usual. That's great. From an attacker's point of view, it tells you, I'm not around. This is the person to talk to if you want to come for help. If you mention my name and tell them that I'm out of office, that's a warm introduction there. There's nothing more than the fact that, but it's a bit of insight into what's going on. You know what's operating within this company. If I go to your line manager cold and I just say, I need help with this, they're going to turn me away. If I say, I've already been dealing with this person, but now they're out of office, I know I need to speak to you. Can you help me? I need this fixed by the time they get back, which will be whatever date. There's a deadline, there's a sense of urgency, there's a sense of, what's the word, of knowing what's going on. You've got that context, you've got that familiarity of what's going on in their world within the company. It just sets you up on a really warm start, and then from that point on, you can move laterally through the company to get to whoever you need to do whatever you want. And that introduction's being made without anyone actually saying anything. You just get the information to introduce yourself.
Yeah, and as you say, I think another stat: 51% of people in the survey told us that they actually provide that personal information in the out of office. So it's exactly what you said, which is it's not just telling people you're not there. It's also giving them, might be
it's a perfect time.
Yeah, alternate numbers to contact you on, who they should work with instead, etc.
Yeah.
Earlier on, you said hacking people is easy and hacking technology is hard. Do you think this is why we've seen such an explosion in social engineering attacks over the past decade?
I think so. And over the years, it's become really effective. Now, if I look back over my career, when we first started out, it was very much you went to the office, you used the corporate technology that was there on the corporate network. All your data was either on site with you or was in the data center at the other end of a leased line. That has changed drastically now. Now it's up in the cloud, it's on platforms, whether it's Google, Microsoft, or whoever. Many cloud platforms. You might not even be using a corporate device to access that information anymore. You might be using your own personal laptop to get into that. The corporate firewall's gone. I mean, look at us all now. We're sitting at home. We've been at home for almost a year now. We haven't been back to a site. A lot of people, you haven't touched the corporate network. You might never even use a VPN to VPN back in. I remember years and years ago, laptops wouldn't even operate until you connect to a VPN. You couldn't get online to the internet until you connect to a VPN. Now you can go for 12 months without even touching a VPN, or might not even know it exists. You're just at home using your own broadband doing stuff. So your identity is the keys that gets you into things these days. It's no longer the corporate firewall as the block. It's what does your account allow you to do? If I can gain access to your account, I can do all the things that you can do, including the things that you might not know you can do because things haven't been set up properly. So you might be doing whatever in your role. If an administrator has configured your account to do more than that, I can try and poke around and see, can I access that thing over there? Can I delete files that I shouldn't be able to delete? Can I view in personnel records? What can I do with that account that person doesn't normally do? It looks like you. For everything I do appears as if it's you. So it's not a threat that's come in. That's not easy to detect. I am just you doing your job as far as the rest of the company can see. So the firewall's gone, and by attacking people, you can become that person, do whatever they can do. And it just makes, people are very vulnerable. As we've said, it's easy to find information about people, to do social engineer attacks, and they will quite easily either literally tell you the password or give you hints of what their password might be, or you can find it somewhere else. Or there's just so many ways to attack a person compared to technology.
And it only takes one slip up, one person doing the wrong thing, and it gets somebody into an organization. And as you've said, the simplest way to illustrate that for people listening here and thinking, well, how does that work? Is you get into somebody's account inside an organization, you gain control of that account, you send hundreds of phishing emails across the company, getting people to log into a fake O365 page and enter their credentials and harvest those credentials and get access to those accounts. What can organizations do to defend themselves against these kinds of risks? It is so hard to change people's behavior. It is so hard to, companies with tens of thousands of employees, you can't control, and there's an ethical question, right? What can you as an organization ask them to do? Don't use social media, don't use LinkedIn, don't update your job profile. Obviously, even if organizations could do that, it's not to say that it's the right thing to do either. So, what can organizations do? How do companies secure themselves against these risks of being of having social engineering attacks compromise their systems and avoid getting their people hacked?
I think it's important to take a step back and think about what cyber criminals are actually trying to do. I mean, at the end of the day, cybercrime is a business. They're trying to make money from you. As I said in the talk the other day, it's either they're going to ask you for money or they're going to get access to your systems and find a way to, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not bribery, it's extort money from you. They're trying to extort money, whether it's from stealing data and saying, I've getting this data from you, or I've encrypted your data, you can't get access to it, or whatever it is, they're going to do something that makes you pay the money. And so those are the two main threats we see today. Social engineering to just make you pay stuff, or they break things and make you pay stuff. So those are the threats that we're up against. In terms of just asking you for money, the first thing is, have you got the right technical controls in place to try and block as many fake emails as you can? All the obvious stuff that comes in, have you got layers of protection that stop spoofed emails, that stop lookalike sender names, that stop lookalike domains? Have you got approved senders even that you allow to certain mailboxes? Have you got all the right scannings in place to try and stop anything that doesn't look quite right? And once things get through there, you've got to have processes in place that people follow to do things. So most companies, accounts payable or whatever, whoever pays the bills, whoever buys stuff, they'll have a process to follow. The problems occur when people break from those processes and they become an exception. That's when the issues are. And cyber criminals are trying to make you move away from what your standard process is due to a sense of urgency. This needs done by end of day today. I'm the CEO. If you don't do this, I will fire you. There's an element of fear in there. They play on all these things to make you do what they want. But the goal is to make you break process and do something you wouldn't normally do. If your normal process is, all right, we get an invoice in, we check all the approved supplier, I send it to this person, they sign it off, we check the invoice, we check the PO that came in first to make sure we even agreed to pay this money in advance. If you do all those things, you're going to find there's no PO for this, there's no reference that we're going to pay this money, we're not going to make that payment. But if they can make you break that process and send the payment right now under threat of losing your job, the company's going to go bust, I'm the boss, I'm the lawyer, whatever it is they're going to do, if they can make you do it, you break your process, you've made an exception to the norm, that's when things go awry. So it's making sure people understand those processes and they stick to them and they understand the reason why those processes exist. I think that's really important to educate people as to why we do things in a certain way and what can go wrong if that happens. Now, these aren't always technical controls. I mean, these are literally when you get a payment request come in, you do these 6 things. If you do that every time, we will be safe. Add a new supply, you do these 10 things. As long as you do these things, we will be safe. So when you break from that, that's when you have a problem. Stats on the social engineering from the outside coming in. We've talked about accounts being taken over. If I can take over your account, I am now the CFO, the CEO, even just an IT help desk manager, whatever the role I've assumed, I can now act as that person. I can ask you to do things. If you break from process when I'm asking you to do something, again, that's where things start to go wrong. Now, if you follow it to the letter, that's really hard to detect that I've assumed an identity and asked you to do things. But if that involves come back to speak to me out of band, either you phone me or you text me or whatever it is you normally do to do something that's more elevated than the normal day-to-day use, that's going to get picked up. So there's other ways of trying to spot that in there. It gets trickier once you've taken over an account because it's not as obvious. But again, it's about training, about processes, and making sure you've got enough understanding of what could go wrong. Most requests that company gets along the lines of social engineering are very unexpected. They don't follow the normal pattern. Now we can dig into these things. We can do in-depth analysis of how people communicate. We can see who knows who, where people are in the world. You can spend a lot of time and money figuring out how a company is operating and the environment they're in. And the more times people spend doing that, the more advanced that attack is, the more familiar they are, the more it looks like it's real. But that's so hard to replicate what it really feels like. So as soon as something feels off, make sure people know to check, pick up the phone, ring someone. I think Joe said in the conversation we had together the other day on the webinar that we did with you guys, tell 2 people, take 5 minutes. That's the official guidance from the police, which is great. Like, speak to 2 people who aren't involved in what's going on and just check with them. Does this seem right to you? Is this what you'd expect? Take 5 minutes to think about what's going on. Is this the right thing? Is this something feel off? Should I investigate further? Everything can wait half an hour more. Nothing's as urgent as you need to do it right now. So I think that's that moves away from technology completely. It's about make sure you have the right behaviors in place. From the technology side, put the basic protections in place. Make sure you lock all the windows and doors. Do what you can to help people to make their job easier when these scenarios do pop up that are abnormal, where they've got to really think about what's going on, and just make sure you've got the tools in place to make their life easier when that does happen.
Seems like a lot of organizations, their core approach to all of this is security awareness training for their people. What are your thoughts on how effective these programs are? Training people to be, the phishing email filters.
They serve a purpose. They are not the end goal. We hire people to provide to our customers, to make things or speak to them, sell them things, make sure they're taken care of. the role for most people in an organization is not cybersecurity. We bring them in to do other things. So giving them cyber awareness training is great. And if we can take off 10% of the threats that come in, or even whatever it is we can do to make a dent in what's coming in, if we can just stop a certain amount coming in because people are aware of what's going on, that helps. It's never going to be 100% effective, nor do I expect it to. So I hear about people talking about when you do phishing awareness training, you send people phishing emails. If you fail 3 times, you get taken to a course. Fine, that's great. You're getting some training. If you fail 5 times, you get a disciplinary. Well, hang on a minute. That's not the job. You brought them in to sell. You brought them in to manufacture. You brought them in to do whatever it is. They're not here to detect spam. They're not here to detect phishing emails. They're not antivirus software. That's not what they are. They're here to do their own job. Don't penalize them for what managed to get through. Because what you're up against is very sophisticated. If someone's really targeting you, they've done a lot of investigations to how you operate. All these things I've talked about so far, that's what they know and that's what they use. And you can't penalize people because of what's gone on there when it's not their job at all. Now we're here to try and protect. We're here to make sure we have all those controls in place, that we've done all the right things. We've closed as many doors as we can. We've made it easier to detect. We've made it easier to respond. We know how to respond when things occur, and we can sort of outsource it to the general population within an organization, but only to the fact of, if someone rings you asking for money, don't pay them. If someone wants your password, don't just give them to it. Have a think, like stop and think before you act. These are the signs to look out for. You can give them a very reasonable understanding, but we'll never expect them to be like you and I are, where we know exactly how these actors work. I think that's unreasonable. But the more we can do to at least help them help us, the better our chances of making things work. And if it leaves us with 90%, then so be it. That's 90%. It's less than what it would have been before. And it can stop some of the obvious stuff as well. I guess it depends on how much, like how in depth, because someone's always going to get in. Like the more time and effort they put into it, they will find a way in. But if you can get rid of like I said, the easy stuff, then yeah, it just makes everyone's life a bit easier.
So I guess your view is that it is the responsibility of the organization to take these security obstacles out the way. It's not on the employee.
Definitely, it's a company-wide problem. Cybersecurity is a business problem. It's not an IT problem. I think a lot of businesses see it as an IT problem, where you pay IT to go off. They run the help desk, they provide kit, they buy software, and they make it run for you, and then they look after cybersecurity. But cybersecurity is a business problem. It goes all the way to the top, in my view. And I think it's important that organizations buy into that. If you haven't got buy-in from the very top, you're limited in what you can do. You can try and tell people these are things to be aware of, but if people aren't incentivized to pay attention and to become aware and to learn about what's going on, they're not going to do it unless this is something that is company-wide, saying we care about this, we want to try and prevent this from being a problem. This is why it's important that we don't have these problems. So for me, it's all about putting training in the context within, again, the context within which someone operates. If you're in sales, I want to put the message about ransomware and phishing in a way that relates to your sales job. If you're a manufacturer, I want to speak about the way your manufacturing environment works. All right, you don't care about ransomware, but you care about making stuff. If all your automation software stops working because of a ransomware attack, you can't make things anymore. You're going to fail on what you're being targeted against. You can't do that. You don't care about other parts of the business that are having problems. You're focused on your little space. If I can put the message in a way that is as relevant to you and the way you think, it makes you think, oh, hang on a minute, yeah, if I can't get my sales orders due today, I don't know what to make anymore. What do I do now? I can't function. I'm not going to hit my targets. I'm not going to get my throughput the way it needs to be. It's all about getting the message into the context of how people can relate to it and really understand the impact. People need to know why we do things. IT security is always seen as a blocker, or has been in the past. For me, I try to make it at least, if not an enabler, just something that doesn't get in the way. I want to try and protect people and let them do their jobs. And if I can show them why a problem is a problem in a way they can relate to, it helps them understand why I'm trying to protect them and why I'm being such a burden in certain cases. Because people want to get things done. They want to get things done really quickly. You want to bring a new bit of software on because it will allow you to do this brand new initiative the business has got going on. They want to get it in quick. They want to make it work now. They want to start using it tomorrow or even today. They want that in there. I'm going to say, hang on a minute, we need to stop and think about how this works. How are you going to sign into it for a start? What are you going to use from there? How are you going to manage user accounts on that thing? What about the data on it? Data protection laws, all that sort of stuff applies. And people don't really want to think about that. They want to get the job done. That's what they're here for. It's our job to try and help them. So we've got to give them that context as to why we're here, trying to help them do what they're doing in the safest way they can.
Craig, thanks for that. I'm hoping that our listeners will be able to take some of that away and bring it to their work lives and their organizations. And Craig, we always try and wrap up with some quick fire questions to get to know the guests on the Human Layer Security podcast a little bit better. So I'm going to ask you to finish the sentence on these two questions. First one is, the best book I ever read was?
The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss.
I'm a fan of that one too. And the next question is, the biggest misconception in cybersecurity is?
What a question. Biggest misconception in cybersecurity. I don't know. It could be it's an IT problem, not a business problem, when in reality it really is. It affects everyone. It affects everybody, not just within a company, but company to company, your personal lives. It affects everything we do. We're so interconnected now. We couldn't really go back to the way things used to be without the internet, because everything we do relies on online, especially now we're all working from home. Cybersecurity is a global problem that we're all facing together. It's something that we're all at risk of. Every time someone gets a ransomware attack, whether against a personal machine, a work environment, a company goes offline, they can't provide us services anymore. Everything's so connected and everything communicates so much over the internet now. Any problem that we see is a huge problem there, not just to a business, but I guess to a community as a whole.
Great, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
That is all my questions. It's been a pleasure to speak to you today. And that just leaves me to say thank you very much for listening. We'll be back with more human layer security insights in our next episode. But if you can't wait that long, you can visit our blog at tessian.com/blog, where you'll find lots of amazing content, advice, and tips. And if you enjoyed our show, please rate and review it on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts.